We can't stop thinking about the war in Israel and Palestine. There's too much bloodshed, and we're too implicated in it. It's impossible to ignore, but it's also impossible to talk about without making things even worse. We're so full of our own biases, gorged with our own truths, our dreams of victory, our vitriol and despair. But look, there is another way. Let me say that it's a tremendous thing that we can think about the problem in a new way, a way that challenges and changes all of our ridiculous assumptions. We can rise to the occasion. We can conquer our ignorance. We can solve this impossible, intractable, perennial problem, which in a sense really is at the heart of humanity. So let's take our time, take a step back, and begin again at the beginning. So what can we do? That's not the right question. And realizing that is the very first thing that we can do. Saying what the solution is the problem. The more solutions we have, the bigger the problem gets. We don't know what the problem is, so we can't offer the solution. But let me give you a hint. The problem isn't political, ideological, or religious. It's something else. Israel is at the focal point of humanity. It's the truth serum, and it always has been, ever since the death of Jesus, the Christian Crusades. Israel demonstrates what we really are underneath our civility. It reveals the truth of our humanity right there on that sliver of land on the Mediterranean. The conflict is expressed in culture, religion, history, but it's not created there. It begins in us, within us. Look, I feel like an irritated father scolding his child. All I hear about this war is nonsense. Newspaper headlines and pundits, protest marches, social media. It's almost as bad as the war itself. We're clueless, swatting at flies, making things even worse. More vitriol, more children killed. All this is just a game, a ridiculous and violent game, a game of politics, identity, and self-love. If we want an answer, it has to be something new, something more profound, and something truly beautiful. So where do we begin? We must begin with humility, much more humility than we have. Let's admit that we really don't know what the objectives of either side are, or what the real conflict and its causes are. Admit that we're ignorant, confused, biased, that we can't see even the most obvious truths. A first step is listening with compassion to the other side, trying to understand their suffering and grievances. Peace is understanding the position of the other side. It's grasping their suffering, their complaints, but don't try to explain it. Just be aware. An 11-year-old girl lost her sight in an Israeli attack in Gaza. "Do you know where my mom and dad are?" she asked, not aware that they had been killed.
والأرض تتكسر وأنا نزلت على الأرض بعدين بعمل هيك وهيك.
But there's a limit to how much good being aware of the suffering of others can do. It's strange to say, but neither compassion nor reason is going to get us where we need to go. What we have called the peace process is a farce. Could it be that our very compassion is what's causing the problem? To begin, let's stop with the falsifications, the misleading and one-sided arguments, the inability to admit the most obvious truths. Palestinians are filled with anger, having lived under what they call occupation for decades, what they call an open-air prison. Okay, take a deep breath. We're going to look at each other afresh, as if for the first time, without the burden of our fear and anger at each other, which, to be honest, is probably quite justified. Without the long history of abuse and exploitation, humiliation, suicide bombings, indiscriminate rockets, hundreds of miles of tunnels. Without settler colonization, self-righteousness, superiority. So ask yourself, what can I do? What can I sacrifice? If you can't answer that question, I'm sorry, but you have no business even entering into this discussion. What should Palestine do? Recognizing the right of Israel to exist is not enough. They should say, I love Israel, and I love Israel and Judaism, and I want the best for them. I'd like to ask Israelis, what can you do? What can you offer Palestinians? Supporting an independent Palestinian state isn't enough. You should bow down in recognition of your failure to be worthy of the great history of your prophets, your knowledge of suffering and injustice. You should prepare to look into the eyes of your foes with tenderness. And what should you do? Okay, this is the main point. You need to recognize your own role in aggression, and that means finding the ways that your own way of life and your own thought system creates misunderstanding and isolation. Enter a quest for real peace. With the historical set of assumptions, there is no solution to the conflict between Israel and Palestine. That's a given. It's going to fester for generations. But one morning it could disappear overnight. We'll awake in clear light, a cool wind blowing away the storm, and see at once how silly we were, and we'll look at each other in shame and love each other. Finding a transformative response to global conflict, one which changes the conflict situation at the root, is a magnificent task. Changing the presuppositions of geopolitics is 99% of the work. To do so, we must raise ourselves to the highest pitch of our nature. That requires courage. We have to look directly into the eye of evil. When we're finally ready for a profound peace, there won't be any need for war nor any chance of it.